Welcome into another edition of the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Frankel alongside me as always. I'm Mike Lucas. Frankel, baseball players were getting paid left and right. Owners spending over $1 billion in just a span of 72 hours to then go into lockout. My first question to you, where's our money?
That's the wrong question. To answer the question that you should have asked, am I happy there's a lockout? Yes, I am thrilled. I do not want a baseball season this year. The Yankees are just running it back. They're bringing the same pathetic team back that has no chance of winning the World Series. And in terms of excitement for the Yankees, it has never been lower in my lifetime. So, yeah, I could take a year off, let the Mets waste a year of Scherzer, and I'd be very happy about that. But in all seriousness, the Yankees are literally bringing back everyone. Gary Sanchez, Luke Voigt, Miguel Andujar, Lucas Lipke, Domingo Germán, they're all coming back. But the guys they let get away, Tyler Wade,
Frazier,
Greg Allen, Andrew Velasquez, Clint Frazier, but like the Clint Frazier thing, that was just the complete debacle. He has so much potential, and I was so excited for him, but it just with the concussions and the vision problems and the vertigo, whatever he was going through, it just seemed like it was just never gonna work out. This past year was his best chance to really solidify himself in a starting position, but he hit like 180 when he was actually playing, and then he ended up getting the issues he had. So I mean, who knows if like he's over them or whatnot, but he was just didn't do well with the media. Was sort of just like this lightning rod that wasn't worthy of being a lightning rod. But I'm not like that. Clint Frazier being gone, it's not going to affect my life. But the players of the Yankees did let get away were Tyler Wade, Greg Allen, and Andrew Velasquez. Basically, the three most athletic guys on the team are now gone. So basically, it's all just Stanton, Sanchez, Judge, Voigt, all the guys that just hit home runs and can't run. So that's going to be very exciting. Yeah, just zero excitement right now from Yankee land, and that's why I'm perfectly okay with taking a year off in baseball because I got nothing.
it is really weird to see teams like the Rangers and the Mets and the Mariners dishing out these massive contracts and to hear nothing from the New York Yankees or even the Dodgers really and/or the Red Sox, who are some of the perennial big spenders in Major League Baseball. I agree with you in the sense that this year's outlook for the Yankees is bleak. We've talked ad nauseum about how boring and how despising or how much we despise the style of baseball the Yankees have been accustomed to playing the last few years. And I don't know why. I can't figure out why Brian Cashman is addicted to rolling out this same team. It's like crack cocaine. Like, I'm not saying he's on crack cocaine, but he's addicted to the long ball and the strikeout, and nothing else seems to give him that baseball high that those two plays do. Frank, I don't know what to say other than the fact, what the heck is happening? Like it doesn't make sense that this is the point of Yankees baseball that we've come to, where A, they're not spending money, and B, they're content with rolling out a roster that they know isn't good enough to compete for a World Series.
Well, we got to see what happens when the lockout does end, because you're hearing the Yankees linked to possibly Freddie Freeman, Anthony Rizzo is still out there, Carlos Correa. So if they go out there, go fishing a little bit, get one of those guys, that'll change the tone a little bit. But here's the reality: I don't think Hal Steinbrenner really cares. As long as he's selling those luxury boxes and suites around the bases and behind home plate, and those seats are being bought, not necessarily people sitting in them, then that's all he cares about. He just wants those luxury seats sold and just to count those dollars. Because George Steinbrenner would never have been acceptable under him in a million years. Seeing the Yankees get eliminated twice in 4 years by the Red Sox, seeing the Rays and the Blue Jays and the Red Sox all being basically ahead of the Yankees with higher ceilings. The Yankees are going to finish in fourth place, assuming if they keep this up. So if that's what they want, then my enthusiasm will be gone. And to see the Mets out here bringing in Max Scherzer and Starling Marte and two perennial all-star players. Starling Marte scored 40 bases last year. Scherzer, when healthy, is
elite,
a top three pitcher in baseball. And you pair him with DeGrom, and those guys can stay healthy. This is going to be a Mets town. Basically, it's unbelievable how the tides have completely shifted here. It is a New York Mets town. And Mike, what is your reaction to seeing Scherzer, Marte joining the Mets, and the Mets seemingly being the new evil empire in New York City baseball?
I would pump the brakes on calling them the new evil empire. I mean,
why not? They're the ones making signings. They're the ones adding players. They're the ones taking those big leaps. The Mets are going to have the highest payroll they've ever had in franchise history. It's going to be higher than the Yankees. And I mean, they're not done yet. I mean, who says they're not going to sign a Chris Bryant or a Correa or
Yeah, they
whoever's.
might, but I'm just saying, pump the brakes on anointing them kings before we see any of this production on the field. It's one thing to spend a lot of money. The Yankees sure have spent a lot of money on guys who haven't panned out before, so it's splashy, it's flashy, it catches the headlines, and yeah, in that sense, they're making way more moves in New York City than the Yankees. But in typical Mets fashion, just because you have these elite players doesn't mean it's going to translate to any kind of success on the base paths. What baffles me about how this whole thing's unfolded is that the Mets seem to be in a position where they're willing to take risks. And for whatever reason, the Yankees don't seem to be willing to take risks. They feel more comfortable in rolling out the dice with the guys they know. And these guys are flawed. Gary Sanchez is a flawed player in a sense. Andujar, flawed player. These guys who they know are flawed, but give some sort of comfort to the front office in, hey, we kind of know what they are, and we'll take the known over the unknown. And the Mets are in the opposite position. And throughout the history of the Yankees, at least as long as we've been alive, Frank, complacency was not acceptable. And when they had a lineup where they saw its limitations, that they had a staff that wasn't up to par, they went out and made moves. And to see the Mets kind of taking the risks and bringing in guys like a Scherzer, who, yeah, when he's healthy, he's elite, but he had a dead arm in the playoffs last year and couldn't pitch. They're risking.
Did you see his reasoning for it? I was like, because I was sort of like, well, I don't know about Scherzer. Like, he couldn't even make it through the stretch run. But so he made comments during his press conference. He said that the reason why he had a dead arm is because the Dodgers were like limiting his usage at the end of the season, and when he actually had to turn it back up again, he just wasn't built up enough to the point where he was able to sustain the workload that he wanted to do, which is sort of bizarre. And like, I wasn't expecting that.
That's crazy.
And he says that he's ready to go now and he's ready to start training and gearing it up. But it had nothing to do with like age or overuse. It was the fact that they were, according to him, I mean, who knows? I mean,
yeah,
he says he was being underutilized. But the Mets are essentially going all in here with DeGrom, who didn't pitch a single game after June last year, and Scherzer, who's going to be 38 in July and had a however you want to call it, he had a dead arm, and that's I mean, if those guys can stay healthy, the Mets, in my opinion, should be probably the favorites to win the National League. But one or both go down, that could easily flip to third or fourth place in the blink of an eye. So that the swings that this Mets season could have is pretty wild. They're as talented enough a team to win a World Series, or fragile enough where it could break and collapse instantaneously.
Yeah, and that's my point with the Mets. The Yankees have always been the team that's taken the risk on these guys, who they look at the upside and say, hey, we believe in our medical staff, we believe in our training regiment, that we can keep these guys healthy for the majority of the season. The Mets hadn't been that in the past. Now you look at the Yankees, and they're just playing it more conservative. And whether that's the right approach or the wrong approach, I tend to believe it's the wrong approach. We'll see how it turns out this year. If Scherzer's hurt all season, if Marte can't handle the bright lights of New York City. There's a ton of variables, but it's odd to see the coin flip to the point where...
Here's why. Hal Steinbrenner is worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 and $4 billion. Steve Cohen, on the other hand, is worth between $11 and $14 billion. So money is no obstacle to him. Apparently the Yankees, or I don't know, Hal Steinbrenner may have been... he never talks. So you never see him anywhere. But I think what may have happened was during the pandemic, the Yankees just took a big hit financially, and Hal Steinbrenner sort of really, putting tight restrictions on how much money the franchise can spend on players and free agency and whatnot. And that's no obstacle to Steve Cohen, who just has he's literally one of like probably the top 50 richest people in the world, and can do whatever he wants. If he wants to spend $45 million on Chris Bryant, and guess what? Chris Bryant's going. I mean, there's nothing that can get in his way in terms of, if someone is at least willing to accept his money, then he can do whatever he wants. And Hal Steinbrenner is not operating like that. I'm telling you, the ties have completely flipped. The Mets are now the team that has unlimited pockets, and the Yankees are the team that's got a little more restrictions and can't do all this free spending that George Steinbrenner became so famous for during his tenure as Yankees owner.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess we'll see what happens moving forward. I mean, if they sign Correa, that's going to be a big check. If they sign Freeman, it's going to be a big check. Like there are some players out there that aren't going to come to New York cheaply, but it's just the mentality and the mindset of the Mets being aggressive, the Yankees being conservative is literally a complete 180 flip of what we saw for the last virtually 2 decades in New York City.
Yeah, Mets fans are if the Mets are good, it's going to be intolerable. Which is yeah. It's just like when the Mets are good, those fans are. I mean, they go crazy because they're just so not used to success. So it's gonna be interesting. But I mean, who knows what's gonna happen with this stupid lockout stuff. The positive sign for baseball is the opening day is not for another 4 months. And you would think that both sides know that they can't, given where the state of baseball is, they cannot afford to miss games or miss a season. Because if you miss a season, you might as well just cancel the sport altogether. Because I mean, you will just get the rest of the NHL, football, basketball, they will lap the field with you 20 times.
And they're already close to doing it. They're already close. Like baseball is the one sport that more than anything else, hockey maybe, but you cannot afford to let these teams gain more ground on you. You're already fighting an uphill battle.
And I really think that the brains behind these lockouts are these owners who are worth billions of dollars but don't want to spend money on players. Those are the people that are responsible for this. It's not the Steve Cohens, of the world, or the guys that are in this because they really care and want to win games. It's the owners that are in it just to make a profit and don't want to spend money on players. Like I was looking at the Pirates owner. Like this dude doesn't give a crap about the Pirates. He's just in it to put the money in his pockets and nothing else. Like the Pirates are a complete dumpster fire. Look him up. Read about him. His name is like Ben something. I was reading about him last night. His name is Bob Nutting. He is he's just like the worst human being of all time. Completely ruined the Pirates, and like if you have a bad owner, as you've seen with the Jets and whatnot, it all starts from the top, and you got these. And I'm sure there's many owners in baseball like this guy, Bob Nutting, who are just like, I don't want to spend money. I don't want to spend money. Less money. And the players are like, we want to be able to pay. We shouldn't be paying a 25-year-old Mike Trout $500,000 a year because he's arbitration eligible until he's like 30. Like that. Like that's the root of the issue. But either way, baseball, figure it the hell out. Play the games, and if you want to lock out, that's fine because the Yankees stink and will never be good again. So I wish I was born in 1975 and I would be able to enjoy the dynasty, but it's not the reality. All right, moving on to college football.
Chaos, brother, chaos.
Major news. Lincoln Riley going from Oklahoma to USC. He made that little snazzy joke at his press conference after Oklahoma lost to Oklahoma State saying, I will not be the head coach at LSU. And it was like, oh, he's staying in Oklahoma. The next day he's going to freaking USC. Is Lincoln Riley this prodigy of a coach that's just going to magically turn USC into a juggernaut? The second, I know he just got Malachi Nelson, the 5-star number 2 player in the class of 2023, but is this a case of Lincoln Riley goes to USC and they immediately go back to the Pete Carroll days where they were just this juggernaut in the West Coast?
Two things. First off, in regards to the question of him saying, I'm not going to be the coach at LSU, go back and listen. I think he intentionally cut off the reporter because he was scared the reporter was going to say, are you going to be Oklahoma's coach next season? And he intentionally cut him off saying, I'm not going to be the coach at LSU, assumingly negating any follow-ups because he knew he was on the way out. And the way he left, you can be mad all you want. I think it's a kind of a not the right way to leave, but I also don't know what the right way to leave is. Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley, look at these guys and moving. When you get that opportunity to leave, you go. And my gut tells me he was scared to play in the SEC, and he thinks the easier path to consistently winning and making the college football playoff in this expanded format is through the Pac-12, where instead of facing Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Brian Kelly, and Auburn every year is Oregon and Utah, which I don't disagree with. And you look at USC, and if the question is, can he turn them into a contender immediately? I don't think overnight. I think they can be better in year one, but they are severely lacking on the line of scrimmage to compete with the top teams. That's why they've gotten whooped by Utah and Oregon the past couple of seasons. They don't have the offensive and defensive linemen to contain those schools, to recruit those positions at elite levels. But Lincoln Riley is as good as anyone in the country, or he has been throughout his tenure as the Oklahoma head coach, at utilizing his skill position players to the maximum abilities, whether it was Jalen Hurts, where they ran more of a run option offense, or Kyler Murray, where it was a true balance 50-50 run pass, or Baker Mayfield, where they threw the ball 80% of the time. He has varied his offense more to suit his playmakers' abilities than any other coach in college football. And if there's one thing California has, especially Southern California, it is elite playmakers at quarterback and at the skill position. So I think he's going to be able to recruit at an elite level at USC. He already has, as you mentioned, Malachi Nelson. He also has 2 other 5-stars in the 2023 class that had committed to Oklahoma, who, guess what?
Right.
They're from Southern California, and they've already decommitted. So I think it's just a matter of time before they flip from the Sooners to the Trojans. So I think he's going to have a super, super talented roster. I think he's going to have an easier path to the college football playoff. And whether the ceiling of can I win more championships at USC than Oklahoma, whether that's varied, I'm not quite sure. But I think the step up in competition from Oklahoma going from the Big 12 to the SEC and now having to fight recruiting battles against Nick Saban, against Jimbo Fisher, against all these other top tier SEC teams, Florida, Georgia, Kirby Smart, like those are the guys you recruit against in SEC country, as opposed to going out west where, yeah, Alabama and these other schools are going to call, but you have the inherent advantage of being the home team, and you're more fighting battles against Oregon and Washington State and Utah and schools out there. So you can keep the best top players in Southern California in Southern California. And yeah, I fully expect USC, maybe not this year, but in 2-3 years, to be right up there with the teams that we look at preseason and say, this roster is absolutely loaded. They can absolutely and should compete for a spot in the college football playoff, if not the national championship.
It's interesting though, because so Oklahoma, they make this move because they want more money for the program, right? They do it because the SEC, there's more money in the SEC than there is in the Big 12, right?
Yeah, and I think they were worried that if expansion doesn't happen, that the Big 12 was just going to be overshadowed. That the SEC would continually have 2 teams in a better position, and you would have to go undefeated and win the Big 12 to make the playoff. You can't lose a game and still make the playoff.
So you point to all that, and all that, on the surface seems to make sense, but I think just looking at the contract details or the reported contract details, the $110 million, the fact that USC is buying the $6 million home, the fact that they're giving him a use of a private jet for whenever he wants to use for his friends and family, the fact that they're reportedly buying his 2 homes in Norman, Oklahoma for $500,000 over asking each one. I just feel like it was almost like USC had obviously been courting him, but they've been like, hey, we'll give you this. And it's like where I was like, no, I don't know about that. Oh, we'll add on. Well, how about we take care of your housing? We'll buy you a house. He goes, okay, that's great, but like, I don't know, I'm still not there yet. What more can we do? You want a private jet? Like, whatever, you want that? Will that make you say yes? And then after like the constant nagging, he's just like, fine, I'll do it. Just get out of my face. And that's how I think that they really, USC just went balls to the walls. Lincoln Riley, whatever you want. Just let us. We'll take it. Whatever you need, whatever you want. Just let us know. And I think that it was more. I could be totally wrong here. You could be totally right that this was just about, man, I have no chance if Oklahoma stays in the SEC, and more about USC just being like, Lincoln Riley, you're the guy we want. Whatever you want, we will do anything it takes to get you here, and it worked. That's how I view it.
And you may be right. I think there's also a little tension, or there was tension between Lincoln and Joe Castiglione, the AD at Oklahoma. My sports director is the biggest Oklahoma fan in the world, so I've been following this extremely closely, and he's convinced there was some drama between the two and they weren't seeing eye to eye on the future of the program. And when he got this opportunity, he said, hey, this is better. But when he comes down to money, Frank, don't tell me Oklahoma wouldn't have matched whatever USC was willing to offer. Like Oklahoma, if USC offered $100 million and he went back to Oklahoma and said, hey, I want to stay here, but USC offered $100 million, Oklahoma would have offered 101. Like, I don't believe money was a real fact. And same thing with Brian Kelly and LSU. Maybe a little different just because I'm not sure exactly how Notre Dame financially works. But if Brian Kelly wanted to stay at LSU and he came to them with that contract offer at $95 million, Notre Dame would have matched. Like, let's not pretend they wouldn't have matched. These are businesses with more money than they know what to do with. Riley left because in my opinion, he viewed USC as a better opportunity than he did Oklahoma in the current state of things. Kelly left Notre Dame because he viewed LSU as a better opportunity to reach his ultimate goal of winning a national championship than what he could do at Notre Dame. So money does play a role here, but I don't believe for a second that Notre Dame and or Oklahoma couldn't have matched the exact dollar and then even raised it to either of those two contracts.
We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Lincoln Riley obviously is, I mean, the fact what he's been able to do with those quarterbacks with Oklahoma, unreal. I mean, it's incredible. Unreal. It's absolutely incredible. Obviously, This year in college football, though, it seems to have. There's not that one guy that the Kyler, the Baker, the Jalen Hurts, like in any of the schools that you just like. I just love watching like Fox like 3 years ago and knowing that the noon game was going to be Oklahoma and you're going to see this team score like 70 points every week and just them run amok. I love that.
Yeah, very different, very different. And even across college football, I mean, C.J. Stroud looked great and then looked terrible, not look great.
How the hell did they cover? I like the way they looked against State. I thought they were going to win the national title, and they go. I mean, maybe if it wasn't snowing, it would have made a difference. And Michigan was just ready. It seemed to be much more ready for to play in that environment. And Ohio State was expecting to be like sunny and 80 degrees and be able to chuck it down the field whenever they wanted to. But man, I was completely caught off guard by that. And,
yeah. Well, I'm just saying, C.J. Stroud, Southern California kid. Bryce Young, Southern California kid. Just saying.
All right, so good segue here. Moving on to Championship Saturday in college football. Georgia's a lock to make the playoff. Even if Alabama beats them 72-9,
yep, they're still in.
Georgia will be in. I'm really stuck. So like Alabama. Listen, let's call it what it is. Alabama. This is probably the worst Bama team in the last like 5 to 7 years. Like this team, they got by the skin of their teeth against LSU. They should have lost to Auburn, if not. Literally, I can't believe that we're still doing this after that Penn State debacle. We're still doing the road alternating 2-point conversions in overtime. It's literally one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. But either way, they should have lost to Auburn. They had to have a miracle drive from Bryce Young in that last drive. Alabama's got no chance. In what world does Georgia not cover that 6.5-point spread? Because I almost view this the same way as I do the Michigan Ohio State game, where like Georgia is unquestionably the better team. Their defense is astronomically better. It's not even close. Bryce, I don't think Bryce Young is that like this dude is. I mean, he's had a couple of good games, but he's not.
He's good. He's good. Trust me. Even in the loss to A&M, seeing him in person, like he's good.
So in what world does Alabama put up a fight against? I think Georgia's going to roll them.
I do too. Now let me preface this. I do think Georgia wins. I bet on them to not only win, I bet on them to cover, and I have them in a couple team parlay, Championship Saturday parlay. So I'm all on the Bulldogs here. But the way Alabama keeps this close is Will Anderson, who's arguably the best player in the country, the Alabama outside linebacker defensive end, wreaks havoc all over Stetson Bennett. And that front seven, however you want, they run a 3-4 defense, but that front seven of Alabama can contain the run. And that's what it comes down to. I do not think Bama will be able to score more than 3 touchdowns tops against this Georgia team. No team has done it all season. I think this Alabama offense is dynamic with Mechie and Jamison Williams on the outside. And
they were being shut out by Auburn into the fourth quarter.
But Jamison Williams got ejected for targeting on a punt return in the first quarter, and he's their dynamic, deep playmaker. So it did change the whole complexion of their offense. He's back for the Georgia game, but I do agree. They can't run the ball, and Georgia's defense is so good. If you get one-dimensional against the Bulldogs, you're in trouble. And I think offensively, they're going to be in trouble. The question is, can Georgia, whose offense has been up and down this year, they've been good enough because that defense has been so stellar that they haven't had any real scares, but can that offense move the ball consistently against I don't want to say an elite Alabama defense because they're not elite by any means, but they're talented. They have a couple studs and they had a couple guys who aren't as good, but they are absolutely talented. The way it stays close is it's an ugly game, kind of like the Auburn. The Auburn game's kind of the formula. And can Alabama and Nick Saban outcoach Kirby Smart to keep it ugly? That's how they cover. But I'm with you. I bet Georgia the points. I got them in a parlay money line. I'm all on the Bulldogs, and I think they win by, honestly, 20 points.
I mean, that seems to be the way that it should go.
I see like 34-13 is like the final prediction.
I mean, you would think, but the 6.5. I mean, I remember talking it over with a guy I work with about the Michigan Ohio State game. I was like, "What do you think the spread's gonna be in that game?" We were thinking like somewhere in the 14 to 20 range, and it was 6.5, and Michigan won outright. So, if you told me right now Alabama wins out, I mean, straight by, I mean, I believe that in a second. But the other team is Michigan. Michigan coming off their greatest win in the Harbaugh era, prime position to make the college football playoff. Now they got the Big Ten championship game. This feels like a situation where either they win by 50 or they lose.
Let me tell you, Iowa stinks.
So Michigan will win easy.
I would bet Big Cat has his game of the century. This is my game of the century. Michigan demolishes.
But Michigan lost
Iowa.
to Michigan State, who got blitzed by Ohio. Like this year in college football it's the wildest year I can remember in a really, really long time, because just when you think it's going to be this or that, it completely flips, and
it zigs and zags. There's no ebb and flow to it. But I can tell you one thing: Iowa was good early. They have no offense, and as long as Michigan doesn't throw 7 turnovers, which they run the ball so much, I can't foresee them doing, this should be a game Michigan wins pretty easily.
We'll see. I mean, if you're obviously asking me to predict a 4 right now, I mean, man, it's really hard. I know Cincinnati and Georgia are the 2 locks, but if Alabama loses by like 50 and like Michigan loses, then the doors really, really open up for Notre Dame, which I would love to see in the playoff, just for the whole spectacle of Brian Kelly and them, playing better than they did under Brian. I would love if Notre Dame found their way in the playoff. Not because I like root for Notre Dame. I'm not like, listen, I like root for Notre Dame, but like I'm not like, I don't live and die by Notre Dame like I do by the Yankees and the Nets. But if Notre Dame found a way into the 4, that would be such an electric story. I would just be all over that. And then if Michigan loses and Alabama gets crushed, then that leaves the door open for, like, if it was Georgia 1, I guess if all the craziness happens, I don't know if Oklahoma State moves up to 2 and then Cincinnati 3 and Notre Dame 4, like that would be amazing. I would be all about that.
I'm going to steal it. This was a Big Cat take or a Big Cat thing on part of my Take Wednesday episode. But if Notre Dame makes the playoff with Brian Kelly out, and then somehow Cincinnati makes it and Luke Fickell is on the move, which is not going to happen because they're going to add Marcus Freeman. But I would like to see a Cincinnati Notre Dame rematch in the championship game with both teams on interim head coaches.
It would be, I mean, unprecedented in the history of. I mean, I mean, you ask me right now what it's going to end up being. I mean, I'm done trying to guess, because I'll let you know on Saturday night after all the games wrap up. I will tweet out my 4, and that's what it's going to be, because I always can read them. I mind of the committee every single year on the final one. Once I know what the results are, that'll be very easy to sort out in terms of what it's going to be, and there's going to be no controversy. So it'll be very straightforward once all the games are wrapped on Saturday. Moving on to the NFL, I can't believe this is happening. The New England Patriots have found their next Tom Brady. They are back. They've won 6 games in a row. They are like the single most unstoppable team in the NFL, and I can't believe it. They are unstoppable. They have the best defense in the NFL. They have like the best group of running backs in the NFL. The receivers are talented enough, and Mac Jones is so smart. He just takes the first read and dumps it off to the open guy. And every time Mac Jones makes a pass, there's no one within 20 yards of the guy. I've never seen like it. But I am convinced if Mac Jones was on any other team, he would stink. He would be so bad. But because he's got Bill Belichick coaching, that defense, those running backs, and the system of offense that they run in Foxborough, he looks like the second coming of Brady. But it would only work, in my opinion, with the Patriots.
I'm not going to say it would only work, but I think his skill set is accentuated perfectly by what Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick want to do. Those 2 coaches are better than probably anyone else in the league at maximizing talent. Just like we talked about with Lincoln and his skill players earlier, Belichick and McDaniels do as good a job as anybody, if not a better job, of putting their quarterbacks in a position to succeed. That's why Matt Castle came out when Brady went down and had his phenomenal season, never replicated that again when he left. That's why you've seen Jacoby Brissett in those 4-game stretches, Garoppolo. Like, these guys have gotten big contracts for what they did in New England and just haven't lived up to those post-mortem in wherever they've gone afterwards. Does Mac Jones have the strongest arm in the world? No. Does he throw the best spiral? No. Is he super athletic? No. But he gets the ball out on time. He processes information quickly, and he doesn't try and do too much. And I think with this whole offensive philosophy that New England has right now, that's what they're asking him to do. Just kind of move the ball, take what the defense gives you, and we'll methodically move the ball downfield. And look at the playmakers on their offense too. Like, they don't have a home run threat. They don't have a guy.
Well, that's the thing. They do have like a couple of home run threats, but they're sort of like the pitcher that only comes in to hit in the 9th inning. and down by a run, and they literally can't do anything else. You see these players like once in a while, but when they do come up, they always hit a home run.
Who are you referring to?
Kendrick Bourne.
But he's not a deep.
He's a home run threat. Although every week I see them throwing deep balls to Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. It's ridiculous.
Aguilar more than Bourne, but like those guys aren't your traditional like Deshaun Jackson. Let's throw it 60 yards and have him chase it, or Henry Ruggs, or a guy along. Cancel. But a guy like that who is his primary focus is to take the top off the defense. Like their playmakers are kind of possession underneath guys who are better creating yards after the catch than they are necessarily getting deep or going deep and catching the ball beyond the secondary already. Like they don't have a Marquez Valdez-Scantling like in Green Bay. They have a bunch of guys who are more like Randall Cobb, and to Mac Jones's credit, he does a really, really good job of distributing the ball to the guys on time when they need to get the ball. And he's just doing what the coaches ask. And it comes down to all sports. I mean, don't do too much, play within yourself, and execute what the coaches ask. And that's how this team will be that's how any team reaches its maximum potential. And you look at, I'm not going to throw Zach Wilson under the bus because I don't think he's a bust by any means. I'm not throwing, but he goes out, and if his first read's not there and he doesn't like it, he scrambles around, he tries to make this heroic play, and more often than not, that's not conducive to winning football. And that's how you get hurt. That's how you take big hits. That's how you create turnovers in a bad way, or you force turnovers, however you want to look at it. And Mac Jones just doesn't do that. He plays smart football. He did it at Alabama, even when he had better weapons like Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. Like he was able to throw it deep, but he was still capable of just making the easy, smart play. And he's the best way. He's surgical. Like he's surgical offensively at picking apart defenses and watching the Patriots offense play. Exactly. And it's in the same mold. And I don't think the offense they're running now is very different than the offense that they ran when Tom Brady was the quarterback. Like it's kind of watered down a little bit, but it's the same general principles and same general philosophy that made Brady so successful.
It's literally like, no, because every other team tries to like fall in love with, the freak athlete at quarterback who can scramble around and run and throw like on the run. But like, I mean, when do those quarterbacks like win? It's usually the blue blood quarterbacks, and that freaking style of offense that Brady mastered, the quick throws, that's the stuff that wins championships, and no other team does that crap besides Belichick. Every other team's trying to like reinvent the wheel, but Belichick's like, I'm just gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep thinking and dunking, and they think and dunk their way to freaking 7 Super Bowls.
Here's why it's so annoying, for lack of a better word, is for every one Patrick Mahomes there's 20 guys like him that don't work. But you look at the history of quarterbacks who are just smart, composed, and take what the defense gives. Like that quarterback, more often than not, like it's Kirk Cousins. Like, yeah, is Kirk Cousins the greatest quarterback in the world? No. Can he win some games? Yes. And if he was in the right situation where they had better, not playmakers. No, I'm not saying playmaker. I'm not saying playmakers.
You said playmakers. You just said playmakers.
No, I said a better situation around them, not playmakers. Because
what situation is better than the one he has right now with the Vikings with?
A coaching staff that knows how to utilize what they want to do. Like you put those players with Belichick, Vikings are best team in football right now.
I mean, I'm still not that sold on Kirk Cousins, but maybe Belichick would be able to work his magic with him, and they would sort of, I guess, if he put on his Mac Jones hat, then maybe the Vikings would be this unstoppable force, because that seems to be the only. I just can't believe that this is like. We spent 20 years like waiting for Brady to retire, and now
they literally get Brady 2.0.
I mean, it's unbelievable that, especially since the Jets traded up to the pick before it, and they could have just taken Mac Jones and just like sucked it up, but whatever.
And here's the worst part. Their one gap year, right? The 1 year that they weren't supposed to be good. They didn't have Brady. They get Cam Newton and Jarrett Stidham, who, for as terrible as they were, they still found a way to be quasi-competitive.
And if Cam didn't get COVID, they probably make the playoffs. So I mean, but also like all their good players and defense opted out. So like,
which is what I'm saying. It's just frustrating that even without the team at 60% strength, if that 50 was still good enough to be damn near a playoff team.
Those fans in Foxborough are so annoying. Every day, Bill Simmons is tweeting about how they're going to win the Super Bowl, and I can't live in a world where Mac Jones is the next Tom Brady. I just can't do it. It's just not fair. Because I've had one playoff game in my lifetime as a Jet fan. It's ridiculous. Let's finish off here with the Nets. Beat the Knicks 112-110. James Johnson decided to make that second free throw and give Evan Fournier a pretty damn good luck at a game-winning three on Tuesday night. But the Nets won. They're 15-6.
I watched it. Finally, these games, I love them on national TV.
So I was actually reading something that the Nets have already reached their national TV game limit.
What?
Well, I don't know. Sorry, they can't add anymore.
Okay.
Or at least maybe if they want to add more, then the New York market gets priority. In terms of the local, if you wanted to watch it on TNT, the only way to watch that game in the New York market would be on the ES Network. But either way.
Okay.
I was looking at videos of Harden from a couple of years ago, 2019, 2018 with the Rockets. Am I crazy, or did he put on a bunch of muscle? Is he fat? I can't figure out
now or back then.
But even you look at him now, and I was literally a couple feet away from him during warmups when they played the Cavs a couple weeks ago. His legs are really skinny, and he's not fat. But I look at him a couple of years ago on the Rockets, and I've seen videos of him. He was just much smaller. Did he just put on a bunch of muscle? What happened?
Okay. I don't have the exact answer. I could just theorize. I think he's a guy who has always played himself into shape. So you look at him at the beginning of the season versus the end of the season. He's always comes into the year a little heavier and kind of works his way into shape. So you did see him early in the season. So I don't think this is peak physical Harden yet. He's always been a guy that hasn't carried his weight great. Even going back to his Rocket days and the Thunder days when he was in his physical, peak physical prime. He wasn't a guy like Westbrook or LeBron or anyone who, his muscles were bulging. He was kind of a doughier guy. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just how some people's body works. And even elite athletes, everyone's genetics are different. And some guys are more aesthetically, pleasing than others when it comes to muscle definition and stuff. He's strong as an ox. I think he's still strong as an ox, but he does look, compared to Houston 3-4 years ago, he still looks a half a step slow to me, either a full step or half a step slow. And I do wonder if that's from him just being bigger, because bigger isn't always better.
Yeah, after that putback dunk and the way he flexed, he's ripped. He is jacked.
He's not fat. He's just a bigger guy.
I think he's put on a bunch of muscle and sort of maybe that's been sort of taking away his little elusiveness. Maybe over time it will go away. By the way, I woke up to an article this morning saying about how the Sixers are interested in James Harden and want to if things go south with the Nets, that he'll go to the Sixers, which just makes me absolutely. I hated seeing that. And Kyrie was at the Seton Hall basketball game in New Jersey last night, which it really bothers me. The Nets are going out of their way to wear these New Jersey uniforms, and if they were still in New Jersey, then Kyrie would be eligible to play. And it's just if you want to play in New Jersey so bad, then go back to New Jersey. Why can't you just honor the playing in Brooklyn? Those jerseys last year, the Biggie Smalls ones, were amazing. And they ditched those for this New Jersey. Listen, obviously we're both from New Jersey. We both have a ton of New Jersey pride. But now that I'm seeing Kyrie Irving would be allowed to play at Prudential Center, enough in New Jersey. You're in Brooklyn now. Own it. You left New Jersey because you couldn't win there. Stop trying to honor the New Jersey tradition. All right, you're in Brooklyn. Own it. Embrace it. This situation's got to end. That you got to do. You can't have this every day. Kyrie Irving's tweeting out these pictures of people. What are these freaking pictures? He's saying free me.
That Instagram message yesterday was cryptic, and I have no idea.
It's so annoying. If I would have known he was at the Prudential, I would have driven down there and barged to the end and confronted him. I would have gotten arrested. It would have been really bad. But this situation's got to it's got to resolve itself. I can't.
And somehow they're 15-6. Somehow they're 15-6.
But in every good team they played, they've lost to. They lost to the Warriors. They lost to the Suns. They lost to the Bucks. They lost to the Bulls, and they lost to the Hornets. Those are and there's one more loss in there that I can't remember off the top of my head. But they've lost.
Here's the point, though. They maybe 15-6. They may have not beaten the teams they should have beaten, but for having Kyrie not in uniform yet, for having to play with Harden, who is still finding his sea legs and was frankly bad to begin the year, to having to incorporate so many new pieces into the rotation, they're still finding ways to win games. And I don't think it's sustainable to play Kevin Durant 43, 44 minutes a night in the regular season. It's not sustainable to have to rely on just Harden and Durant to create your offense. And this formula of success that they've had, because 15-6 is 15-6. I know they haven't beaten good teams yet, but you still have to beat the bad teams. You look at the Bucks; they're ahead of the Bucks. Like I think they're second place in the East right now, first place in the East. So
the Bucks,
they're ahead of the Bucks. The Bucks have struggled.
Yeah. The Nets are still in first. The Nets are still in first.
Yeah. So like against all these odds, they are somehow still in first place in the East, 21 games into the year, and I think it bodes well that they have the potential.
The Bucks have won 8 in a row. Holy crap!
Yeah, the Bucks have won 8 in a row. They're finally getting healthy, and the Bucks are going to be really good. Like the Bucks are obviously good. Their game against the Hornets last night was phenomenal. I'm not sure.
Giannis is just absurd.
Yeah, but either way, it gives me confidence knowing that this team is able to win games that they're supposed to win without Irving, and I'm still hopeful he'll come back. And I'm still hopeful Sean Marks won't just waste this season by allowing him to sit out, whether that's trading him for pieces that can help now or whatnot. But 15-6 is 15-6, regardless of who you beat. The schedule is what it is. And we could be sitting here at 12-9 and be like, oh, the Nets are underperforming. Like this, no Kyrie. They're really affected by this. The matter of the fact is they're still finding ways to win without a top 20 player in the league. And not only is he not there, but they're getting nothing out of that position from him because Kyrie, you can't trade him at the moment. He's not playing. He's just a non-factor. He's not even able to coach up the young guys, which we had hoped he would be able to coach up Cam Thomas, who's looked really good.
But Harden and Durant have really taken.
They've stepped it up. Yeah, absolutely.
So the other point I want to make was I feel like if Harden and Durant and Sean Marks and Steve Nash just barged into Kyrie's home and like threw him up against the wall and like held guns to his head. Listen, you're playing. Get the stupid shot. I feel like he would have to cave. I just feel like this is really.
So you want them to kidnap Kyrie Irving and hold him hostage for ransom until he gets the shot?
I mean, yeah. I mean, everything else seems to not be working. So that's my next best hope here. Is just pin him against the wall and force him to get the shot. And the last thing before we go here, almost the other way. I don't know if the media does this to just rile me up, but every article says the Nets are playing Durant too many minutes. They're wasting him. They're ruining him.
They are.
All right. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm just so fed up.
Do you agree?
I mean, yes,
but like,
I mean, is he like? I don't know. I'm not like this medical doctor. Like, I don't know if like resting. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
I don't think they should rest him, Frank. Listen. I don't think you should rest him. But 44, 45 minutes is what you play in Game 6 of a playoff series. And I don't think it's fair for Kevin Durant at this stage of his career, knowing his injury history, to have to play that extent. If he's going to play 36, 37, 38 minutes, like fine. But 44, 45 minutes in a situation like he is where he's the primary focus on offense, like he's the creator, like everything kind of runs to him. Those aren't easy minutes. Those are stressful minutes. At some point, the odds say your body breaks down, and like Scherzer, you get a dead arm, whether that's from overuse or underuse. Like, I just think you could be smarter about how you use him this early in the season. Is all I'm saying. It's an 82-plus game year. We're 20 in, and Durant, does he lead the league in minutes, or he's second? Like,
I don't know. I'm not worried about it. Like, I'm not gonna. I just like I feel like the media just they're like, oh, he's playing too many minutes. He's playing too many minutes. Oh my God, they're ruining Kevin Durant. They're gonna ruin him. Like, just calm the hell down. He's fine. He's a basketball player. It's not like he's I don't know, like running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never like taking a breath. Like,
yeah,
I
think it's too many minutes, but I also don't think it's like panic mode, smash the red button, like we're in trouble. I just would like to see them temper it down a little bit. But frankly, right now, they need his offense. Like they don't have enough guys without him on the court to create enough offense, especially with Joe Harris going down, which is a big injury. So
I can't believe that Joe Harris sprained his ankle, sat for 2 weeks, and they're like, oh, he needs surgery. Oh, another like 6 weeks. Like, give me a sprained ankle. Ridiculous. Listen, I love watching this team. I can't get enough of watching this team.
I love them. Yeah, it's
they
amazing.
are
so much fun. Patty Mills is the best. Patty Mills is so good.
I mean, until I saw that article this morning about Harden, like being linked to the Sixers, like he's my favorite net player of all time. He's my favorite basketball player of all time. And I really want to buy a jersey, but I just got to know that he's going to commit beyond this year before I do that. Freaking love James Harden. And that put back.
We'll be on the edge of our seats waiting for the outcome of that, Frank. Would you buy the Brooklyn Biggie jersey, or would you go the Patterson?
I'm not buying any stupid New Jersey jersey because screw that. You don't play New Jersey anymore. Enough. I can't deal with it anymore. See you guys next week.